What's going on, Central Unit? It's the Central Man here. So this is my review of WCW Monday Nitro for the 18th of December, 1995. So this Nitro was in Augusta, Georgia. It starts with the shocking return of Madusa to WCW. She was in WCW before in the early 90s, part of the Dangerous Alliance with Paulie Dangerously, and then she moved on to the WWF as Alonda Blaze. And done my research that in October of 1995, WWF released Alonda Blaze as the women's champion, and also they took the title away from her. And the story is that Eric Bischoff, and he admitted when he debuted on Raw in 2002 that he pitched the whole idea to have Madusa showed up on Nitro with the WWF Women's Championship belt. Yeah, she cut a promo, says, "I'm Madusa, always Madusa. This is the WWF Women's Championship belt," and she put the women's belt in the bin, and she said, "That's I think about the WWF Women's Championship belt," and she said, like, "This is the big boys' place, and now this is the big girls' place." So, this is the gimmick of the Monday Night Wars. The big boys play, anything goes. One star going to Raw, one go to Nitro. One go to the WWF, one go to WCW. You're not going to see it right now with the Wednesday Night Wars, between AEW and NXT, because NXT is not really a wrestling company. It's still under the WWE umbrella, because that's, NXT is a developmental territory. AEW is a proper wrestling company. Anyway, so after that, you got William the Refrigerator Perry showing up. I've done my research that William Perry played alongside Mongo with the Chicago Cubs because, Mongo was an American football player, played in the NFL alongside William the Refrigerator Perry. I think it's his first wrestling appearance since WrestleMania 2 in 1986. It's more like meh, just a random cameo appearance. Madusa is different because, I think she got fucked over by the WWF. Because, they took the title away from her. They cut her due to budget cuts. And then, it's very funny, like, when Madusa did that, it's basically burning any bridges that she could return to the WWF anytime when WCW went out of business. She returned 20 years later when she got inducted in the Hall of Fame and removed the old WWF Women's Championship belt out of the bin. I think the reason why she did that because I think the women's division in the WWF at the time was really dead. They brought it back in 1998 in the Attitude Era. That's another story for another time. Anyway, so moving on to the first match of this Nitro. We got Ric Flair versus Eddie Guerrero. This is the first time they fought one-on-one. I don't think they fought in the WWE years later. I don't know. They had a really interaction at the 2005 Royal Rumble pay-per-view. They had this segment, Eddie Guerrero stole Ric Flair's number and his wallet. That was funny. If I review Royal Rumble 2005, I will talk about more, but that's another story of another time. Anyway, the match was decent. Both wrestle different styles. Eddie Guerrero's a luchador. He does lucha libre styles. And Ric Flair does does the chops, taking down the opponent's legs. The figure four leg lock. I'm not saying he's a bad wrestler. He's kind of one-dimensional. Anyway, one more of the match. Eddie Guerrero's going for a move off the top rope, but Ric Flair stopped him. Basically, kind of shake the ropes, and Eddie kind of awkwardly fall down, hurts his knee. In the end, Ric Flair locked Eddie Guerrero with the figure four leg lock. Instead of Eddie Guerrero tapping out with the figure four leg lock, Guerrero passed out from the figure four leg lock. So Ric Flair won this match. Afterwards, he keeps stamping on Ric Flair. He did the strut. Then he's stamping on Guerrero. And then you got Mean Gene Okerlund interviewing Ric Flair and Arn Anderson without Brian Pillman. They just bring up the previous week's episode of Nitro when they beat down Paul Orndorff. That was his final appearance as a pro wrestler before retired due to injuries. I think at this moment he's now a road agent to WCW. They talk about it. He said about if you jump one of them, you jump in all of them, and then you got Jimmy Hart and the Taskmaster Kevin Sullivan basically confronting the Horsemen because Brian Pillman made some insults, remarks of the Dungeon of Doom. He said about you need to put Brian Pillman in a leash, and Arn Anderson said about he wants to go after Pillman, and Arn Anderson said about if you go after Pillman, you end up fighting Arn Anderson and Ric Flair, and I don't know. It's gonna lead. I don't think it's leading up to Horseman versus the DOD, the Dungeon of Doom. I don't want to get into it. It was just like, it's just basically like, the Taskmaster basically got pissed off what Brian Pillman says. He did put over, Ric Flair. He's the greatest world champion of all time, and the Horseman is the best faction of was it God's Green Earth. Anyway, so moving on to this shit segment with basically had Craig Pitbull Pittman. I keep confusing sometimes as Pillman because they both got like P in their last name. Anyway, so I'll call him Pitbull. Pitbull basically asked Bobby Heenan to be a manager, and Heenan says, "I'm not a manager anymore. I'm a broadcaster." And he end up, I'm talking about Pitbull. He end up like, if no one's not going to help me, I'm not holding prisoners. Yeah, I think he left in '96. Pittman. I don't think he's that good. I think he ended up pursuing MMA. This was years later in WCW. Yeah, it's so dumb why Pittman basically asking Bobby Heenan to be a manager because he's not a manager anymore. He quit as the manager after he left the WWF, come to WCW as a commentator. I think he ended up a manager years later. This is years after WCW went out of business. This was at the XWF. Another story for another time. Anyway, the next match, we got Lex Luger versus Marcus Alexander Bagwell. I'm going to call him both Bagwell. One half of the American Males. Future members of Total Buff. That's a tag team. This was like in the dying days of WCW. That'll be in 2001. Totally Buff dies, Lex Luger and Buff Bagwell. Anyway, this match was okay. It's more like you take it or more leave it match. It was, both had some offense. In the end, Luger basically locked Buff Bagwell with the torture rack, and then afterwards you got Mean Gene Okerlund interviewing Lex Luger. Luger is talking about bringing up I submitted Randy Savage. I should have won the world title if Hulk Hogan did not interrupt. He said about I'm gonna win the world title, and then I'm gonna end up looking at the world title when I get up in the morning. Some shit like that. Luger's not really a good talker. It's just what it is. These promos in the early days of Nitro, it didn't really do nothing for me. That's just me. It's just basically Luger said that, before that, Jimmy Hart putting over Luger, said he's still the undefeated world champion. Because he never lost the world title, because he bring up the match against Randy Savage a couple weeks ago on Nitro when Hulk Hogan interfered. Anyway, so moving on to the next match. The next match, we've got Sting versus Earl Robert Eaton with Chiefs. I think that's his name. I think he used to be called Sir William, because I think the difference is Sir William wears the bowler hat, the glasses, the cane. I don't want to get into it. It's stereotypical British. No Steven Regal. It's a shame why Regal's not showing up, because they're part of a tag team known as the Blue Bloods. I don't know, man. Anyway, Earl Robert Eaton is formerly known as Bobby Eaton, part of the the Midnight Express, the Danger Alliance now. In 94, 95, he teamed up with Steven Regal, aka William Regal, to form this tag team known as the Blue Bloods. One's basically a typical as a spin to the playing homage to the American Revolution between America and Britain, because Regal's from Britain, Eaton's from America. Anyway, so the match was similar to the previous match between Luger and Bagwell. It's more like take it or leave it. Eaton has some offense. In the end, Sting hit like the Stinger Splash and the Scorpion Deathlock onto he locked the hold on to Eaton to make him tap out. And then we got the third interview segment with Mean Gene interview Sting. He brings up, just typical, bring up the match at Starrcade, and he said Sting said, I'm a 5-time world champion at Starrcade, I'm going to make it 6. It's just like, Moving on to the main event. The main event, we got Randy Savage defending the WCW World Heavyweight Championship against the Giant. The match was It was It wasn't really a bad match. You know, the final 3 matches on this Nitro, you know, they're not bad matches. Don't get me wrong, but they're not like great. They're just okay. You know, thumbs in the middle. I put it down the middle. The match was okay. I feel like early stages of the match, Savage locked the Giant with a sleeper. You had basically you had Savage drop kick the Giant, and the Giant accidentally knocking Jimmy Hart off the ring apron, and Bischoff called Jimmy Hart a maggot because he turned on Hulk Hogan to join the Dungeon of Doom. Anyway, so I think the Giant kicked out the diving elbow. I think in the end you had the Giant hit the leg drop onto Savage, and afterwards you had Hogan basically came down, hit the Giant with the chair, beamed down with the chair, and then you got like Mongo came out of his commentate area, and then you got William Refrigerator Perry. I don't know, and then it led up to this main event segment with Mean Gene for the 4th time interviewing both Savage and Hogan. Hogan said about Ric Flair, you know, he found out Ric Flair is getting a world title shot next week on Nitro. Hogan got pissed off. He said sick about being suspended. I think that was during, like, he interfered in the world title match between Hogan and, I think it was Savage and Luger, sorry. Afterwards, you got the Giant trying to come down to the ring. You got Pitbull. I don't know, he's part of the Dungeon of Doom. And Taskmaster trying to restrain the Giant. Hogan came down to the ring, chase off both Taskmaster and the Giant. And he said I demand a world title shot. And Savage says, I got matches at Starrcade. You know, he got a match against Tenzan, and Sting, Luger, or Flair. And also Flair again on Nitro. That'll be the following week. And then, you know, they kind of teased it. You won't get the Hogan and Savage match at Halloween Havoc in 1996. You know, go and check my review on it. So anyway, it said about they set there, and that was the end of it. So I don't want to get into it. This main event promo segment, it didn't do nothing for me. It was just like, just. Anyway, so my final rating for this episode Nitro. But boy, I'm gonna give it probably 5.5. It was okay, you know. In the good, you had really Madusa's return was the most talked about on this show. Is Madusa putting the WWF Women's Championship belt in the bin, and also Flair versus Eddie. Besides that, they're not really bad matches on the show. They were okay, like Luger versus Buff, Sting versus Eaton. And the world title match in the main event between Savage and Giant, you know, it was okay, but not perfect. And the only thing in the bad for me has to be the stupid random segment with Pitbull asking Bobby Heenan to be his manager and Heenan says no, I'm a broadcaster now, and this just a random cameo appearance of William Perry. It didn't do nothing, so. Anyway, so that's my review of WCW Monday Nitro for the 18th of December 1995. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, smash the like button, and subscribe to the Central Man Network on YouTube. And this is the Central Man officially signing out. Check you later.